Hi, Year 11. I wanted to give you an opportunity to find out a bit more about psychology and sociology. So even though these are two discrete separate subjects, they're taught within the same department. Some of the teachers, like for example, Miss Wilson, will teach both subjects. And one of the questions that students often have is, well, what's the difference? Which one would I be better suited to? So what I'll do here is outline both of the courses, talking about how they're different, but also the similarities and how they work with other subjects. And hopefully that will give you a feel for both of the subjects, and you'll be able to decide for yourself whether these are things that appeal to you, you find interesting, and that you would be keen to learn more about, because they're obviously both brand new subjects and you might not have done very much reading or thinking about either of these things before now. So first of all, if we have a think about what the courses involve and what the difference is. So I always say to students who ask me what's the difference between psychology and sociology, is that psychology is the study of the human mind and everything that that entails. So it's a very scientific approach to understanding why we behave the way we do on quite an individual level. Whereas sociology is the study of the collective, it's the study of human society. So you can see there, if we start with the psychology, the topics that are covered throughout the 2 years, and we look at memory, how our memories work, how our brain manages to store memories. We look at social influence, which is issues like why we conform, why do we do what others do, why do we follow the crowd, why do we obey, why do we accept certain forms of authority. Psychopathology, which is the study of abnormal behaviour. So we look at things like OCD, phobias, depression. And I think at this point it's important to say that that's one small part of psychology. Most of what psychology is about studying and understanding normal human behaviour. But of course we want to also look at what happens when it goes wrong. But it is much broader than that. Attachments, so why we form attachments when we're infants, why we form attachments with our parents, how that affects us in later life, what happens if that goes wrong, and approaches. Now what you would very quickly learn if you decide to take on psychology or do a little bit of preliminary reading around it is you could have 5 psychologists in a room and they would all have a different opinion. And psychology is one of those subjects where every topic that we look at, we'll approach it from different perspectives, and we call those the big approaches in psychology. So it means that there's often not an answer as such, there's a range of different views. And underpinning all of that is research methods. Now that is something that you find runs both in psychology and sociology, and for those students who do both subjects, they find that helps them because there's a big overlap there, so they learn it for one and then it makes it an awful lot easier in the other. But that's really getting to the nuts and bolts of, okay, so here's all these theories in psychology, but how do we know that? Where have these things come from? What research methods have been used to carry out that study, that experiment, that observation, and so on. And looking ahead to year 13, it's building on those same themes. So we do an in-depth study on schizophrenia as an example of mental ill health. We look at the forensic psychology side of things in terms of why people have criminal behaviours. Building on the attachment topic, you go in to look at more adult relationships and issues and debates, which underpins everything. Again, it's those big questions in psychology like nature or nurture. So that's the psychology. You can see it's massive. It covers essentially all aspects of human behaviour. Sociology then, looking at the study of human society, much more about looking at the collective and therefore looking at big institutions, and that's how year 12 begins. So we look at family as a big institution, the different types of family, how it's changed over the years, impact of things like domestic violence, the divorce rates, everything linked to the family, and try and understand why those things have changed, how attitudes have changed, what about the impact of feminism. And then exactly the same with education. What's the purpose of education? What do different sociologists think about it? And again, as I've said with the psychology, underpinning all of that is research methods. How do they carry out these things? And in the same way that in psychology we have the approaches, in sociology we also have the big sociological perspectives. So you look at things from a functionalist, Marxist, feminist point of view, postmodernism. So you begin by getting a really good grounding in the different sociological perspectives, and then you can apply it to all the different theories and areas of interest. And looking ahead into year 13, the main topics that you look at are media and crime, underpinning with theory as well. So they're both very big subjects, big topics, but fascinating because it's what's around us, it's who we are, and it's the society that we live in. So a little bit on some of the kinds of questions. I always think it's useful to think of it in terms of the sorts of questions that we answer. And if these are questions that you have found yourself asking yourself or wondering about until now, then that's a pretty good indication that you would enjoy these subjects. So, you know, why is it that some people become criminals and others don't? What makes someone attracted to somebody else? Why do we do as we're told, or often do as we're told? And generally, what makes us who we are? What shapes our personality and the choices that we make? So that's very much on an individual level. And with sociology, we're thinking about how those big institutions impact us and how that things have changed over time. So we might ask questions like, is gender and the gender division, is that still relevant today? What do feminists think? What do different people think? Where's the evidence? Why do some people have so much money and power and others have so little? So what do Marxists say about that? So those are the sorts of questions that we might be discussing, and there will be lots of discussion in both psychology and sociology. So you need to think about whether that's something that you would be willing to throw yourself into. Obviously, informed discussion, not just opinion, but informed discussion and debate. So you need to be aware of what the assessment is in terms of how your grade at the end of it all would be determined, and you need to think for yourself whether this method of assessment suits you. There's no coursework in either subject. So with psychology, at the end of year 13, there's 3 exams, all equally weighted and all 2 hours long. And essentially, across the 2 years, you've covered all of the content to allow you to sit those exams and to perform well. There are essays as well as short mark answers. So there's some multiple choice questions. There's some that involve you using your mathematical skills for the sort of statistics element of it. But there's also that need to be able to write a good essay. And that's why our grade requirements are as they are, because we need to see that you've got those written skills as well as the maths and the science skills. In sociology, again, it's essay based, and the shortest question is worth 10 marks, which is still a mini essay. So much more about your essay writing skills and of course the knowledge that underpins it. And again, it's 3 exam papers, all equally weighted, that cover everything across the 2-year course. So no coursework or controlled assessment, and that's important for you to be aware of. So I mentioned just there the entry requirements. This is just to remind you, this is all in your prospectus, and obviously you need to consider. And they're there not because we're trying to catch people out, but because we know the demands of the course and we want to make sure students are on the right courses. And with psychology, there is a big biology element, as well as an element of statistics. And of course, with the sociology, it's very much around the English and being able to construct a good essay and a good argument. So what will lessons involve? Well, just what you're used to, basically. It's new knowledge, it's new learning, and of course that's really exciting. You're going to come across new theories and ideas and think about things you've not thought about before. But lots of discussion, lots of debate. We begin every lesson with retrieval, just like you're used to, but actually as psychologists in particular, you'll understand why, because you'll then understand a bit more about how the memory works and why this strategy of retrieval is so important. So it's just the same things that you're used to. High expectations, that you do lots of reading outside of lesson, you practice questions. We give you loads of resources to allow you to be strong, independent learners. So there's quite a high expectation on that from the beginning, but you'll find that across all your subjects, I'm sure. So often people want to know, well, what does it work well with and what will it lead me on to? And obviously some of you will be sat there thinking, well, I've no clue what I want to do in the future. And there'll be lots of support for you this year to think that through and decide on what career path or career options are right for you. But at this point, I think it's important you make an informed decision about what course you like the sound of, that you think you can meet the grade requirements for and you think you could achieve well at. and then thinking about what would it sit well with. So psychology can sit well, really, two paths. It sits nicely alongside other humanities, sociology, history, art, health and social, but it can also sit nicely alongside the sciences because it is a science. And sociology again, we had students that have done sociology alongside some of the sciences because they've been interested in going down the midwifery route. We've also had students that have done it alongside subjects like art, and they've been interested in going into primary teaching. It's one of those subjects that it shows a good skill set, and it can lead you in lots of different directions. And when we think about it, actually, there's quite a bit of overlap between psychology and sociology as to where it might take you. And those are just some of the examples. You just need to be really careful that if you know you want to go into medicine, for example, then although we say psychology is a science, most medical schools wouldn't really be keen to see psychology as one of your sciences. They'd much rather you go with the pure sciences of biology, chemistry, physics, and maths. So it is a science and it sits nicely alongside sciences, but if you've got a very clear goal where you want to go, just use the UCAS website, I would say, and just use the support in school to help you make the right decision, because I don't want any student doing a course that's not right to get them where they want to eventually be. But it certainly can open lots of doors, and so can sociology. You know, you're looking at sociology of education, sociology of crime, sociology of media. You think about all of the places that that can take you, marketing, you know, any kind of area of media that you're going to go on and explore. Teaching, education, research, there's a lot that it can kind of open up to. So your tutors in the room are going to help facilitate a task. I'll not go into detail on that particular task now. There's one for psychology and there's one for sociology, and it will just give you a little bit of a taste for the subject. But what I would stress is to come and speak to either myself, Miss Mersch, or Miss Wilson if you've got questions about the course, because we can show you examples of students' work, we can put you in touch with students to talk to, we can show you examples of resources, and we can talk you through it if you don't feel like this has given you enough of an insight. Okay, I hope that was helpful, and so I'll leave it at that, but please do just give us a shout if there's particular things you want to discuss further. Thank you very much.